Welcome to the Innovation Conversation, a podcast about innovators, both in business and real life. Hosted by myself, Ricardo Pascual, and Harry McDonough. This podcast is also sponsored by ODEV Tech. ODEV Tech is your premier software development partner. Make sure you check them out at odev.tech. The podcast is also sponsored by Notion.so. Notion is offering 6 months for free for new users. Make sure you check out our website, thestartupevents.co.uk, to redeem this offer. Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Innovation Conversation. Today we are joined by Lina Gallagher. Lina, welcome to the podcast.
Ricardo, thank you for inviting me.
It's a pleasure having you here. Lina, would you like to introduce yourself to the audience, please?
Yeah, so I'm Lina Gallagher. I live in the United Arab Emirates in Dubai for the last 12 years. I have a number of companies. One is e-commerce consultancy, where we help businesses to basically start selling online, from technology to operations to marketing. It's called Immerse Consulting. I have a paid media agency called Enkindle Digital, where we run a traditional Google, Meta, Snapchat, LinkedIn ads in both languages, so Arabic and English, which is pretty unique. I have an e-commerce training academy, which is actually globally, and majority of the clients are actually Europeans, called Ecom Wave, where we teach you, predominantly founders, startup owners that want to do e-commerce and don't maybe know where to start or don't know how to scale and grow. You can imagine these are like digital courses. I have a book called Winning in the Platform Economy in the GCC. So it also talks about how do you compete with Temu's, Shein's, and the rest of the platforms globally when you are launching e-commerce brand. And like yourself, like Ricardo, I have a podcast called Commerce Talks, where we talk about e-commerce. Little mini Lina's empire, but it's all around e-commerce and all around working from founders who haven't even started to actually very large enterprises that are going through growth challenges, profitability challenges, expansion to another country challenges, so you name it. So very honored to be here, and I'm sure we'll have a great conversation.
Thank you. It's a pleasure having you here. Lina, how did you get started with all this? Because there's quite a lot of stuff that you actually do. So how did you move from the UK to Dubai? I mean, how was that transition? How did you even get started doing all these things?
So I'm actually an entrepreneur since 13. I started my entrepreneurial journey very young as a website developer. And I used to create like what used to, now it's a WordPress, but before that, HTML traditional websites. For the listeners, I'm 37. So at that point, we still had, I would develop your website, like coffee shop, mini restaurant, like any website, right? So you have just at least a landing page. And after that, I would go to on the same street to your neighbor and say, okay, would you like to advertise on the restaurant shop, on the coffee shop? And I will do those annoying banners. Remember when we used to go on some website and then like these banners pop up into your face? So then I was part of the, let's say, banner revolution, where all these AOL, Yahoo, and so on and so forth, before the social media even was invented. At 18, I moved to Liverpool to study e-business. It was the first university globally that actually did e-commerce, like as a university degree. So I went through this whole bubble bust and you name it. 3 years in uni, very, very challenging. But actually, I was one of those students who left university and said, OMG, I actually learned a lot. I am 22 or 21, actually. I'm 21 and I actually can run e-commerce business, or at least I know all the elements, but maybe no practical experience and all this. But as you can see, I'm quite chatty. So then what do you do next? World's perception is that you go into the job. So I was one of the fortunate ones that I got a graduate scheme at Deloitte Consulting London. I still think, I know it's on the record, it's one of the best consultancies in the world. The reason I sit today in Dubai is because the mentors I had there, the partners I work for. Was it hell on earth? Yes, it was hard work. It was hustle every day. It was long hours, and everything that you read in the press, it was the case, okay? London city, pressure, competitive, you name it, but I wouldn't change anything. Me and my husband joke, in these days, we're like, even if our kids, we have 2 kids, even if our kids want to do be artists, go into the pro bono type of work, they are having internship at one of the big fours, because it really teaches you not just business. it teaches you how to structure your day, how to structure your life, how to be motivated, driven. You understand what like mentorship is. You really like, you are in a very big pond, small fish, but you are surrounded by the smartest on earth. Honestly, wouldn't change it for the world. So when I was working for Deloitte, I was part of their Deloitte digital founding team, in terms of when e-commerce was just coming up. I worked on all these big projects, large brands globally starting their e-commerce journeys. And then opportunity came out for my husband in the Middle East, and by that time it was, you either move with him or you end relationships. We were together by that time 7 years. So as much as my husband moved to London for my job, it was my turn to move to the Middle East for him. So we moved, and let me tell you, I moved to Deloitte, but I quickly realized that maybe I'm missing Deloitte London too much. I tried to do projects maybe with Deloitte London and so on and so forth. So if you asked me before the move, would I ever left the company? The answer was no way. I was going to go for partnership. Even if you would have threw money at me, entrepreneurial journey, I would have said no. I was loving the life that much in that career. But things changed, in the Middle East. I just decided that I saw that too big of the opportunity, that e-commerce did not exist here. Like nobody had e-commerce. No large brands had e-commerce. It was too big of the opportunity to be in a job. So I took a risk and I started 2012. 2012. So large enterprises had no e-commerce. Like if in the UK, Tesco, John Lewis, like all these Chanel, Dior's, Fashion, Zara, they were all online. In Dubai at that point, everything was offline. So you had a lot of famous brands, but because they were franchised, from the brand to the Middle East, the franchisees were not investing in e-commerce. Some of them did not want to invest. Others did not have skill set. The third were like, oh, we're doing so well on offline. Why would you go online? So I took a hit. I left a very well-paid job, very big brand, and I decided that I'm going to start my mini consultancy, if you like, and maybe one-woman show, and try to convince. First of all, my goal was not to make money like I'm dreaming of being Jeff Bezos, because by that time I've seen a lot in consulting that Jeff Bezos is not born overnight, okay? I saw that it needs work, ethic, and all this. So it wasn't like, oh, I'm tomorrow going to wake up with millions, because I was the first to start e-commerce consultancy. But I knew that they are looking for the skill set that I had it. And I knew it will be hard work, but my vision was a lot bigger. I was like, imagine telling someone you played a key role on digitizing the country. Where else in the world I can say that I'm working on all these green projects? In London, whether anywhere in Europe, I'm Lithuanian. So anywhere in Europe, you would be like, either improving e-commerce, maybe replatforming, so you could bring a lot of new things, but that's not, oh, I'm starting it. Like, I didn't know anyone at that point that would say, I started e-commerce for, Carrefour. Like, people like, how old are you? You know what I mean? So, and I had this opportunity here. So it wasn't easy, it was a lot of knocking on the door. So you can imagine, blonde, female, doesn't speak the language, only English, no connections of sorts of like, I know such and such and can get you intro such and such. So a lot of knocking the door, and honestly, not giving up, and I think I learned that at Deloitte. At Deloitte, every project was like a new company. You had to build relationships with clients. You had to reset your value. You had to win the deal with the partners. So I was from the age of 21, taught to never give up. And like, just because they said no does not mean that you stop knocking the next door. So I was kind of like constantly knocking, constantly sending messages. I went everything. I offered work for free. I offered an opportunity to code. I said I will take all the risk. Anything you can possibly think of, I risked it to do it. And I'm glad I did, because if you are not a fraud and you know what you can do with your two hands, this region is amazing, because it's really like they love, like they present you a lot of opportunities. You just need to grab it. But one thing you need to know, that you need to be able to deliver with your two hands. So, like if in maybe Western world, we would be like, okay, it's me, and then I will get a team of 5, of 20, of 100. I do A's, Ricardo does B, and we together do something.
Mhm.
Over here, no. Like here, you can succeed, but you can't expect from anyone anything, right? They give you very openly invite you. They're willing to pay for you for your knowledge, but they will ask you very clearly, what do you know? Not what someone else is like, so like, if you just sales guy selling it, but they will be like, but what do you, Ricardo, know? So if I put you in this job just by yourself, what are you able to do? And I was fortunate enough that I learned, I have quite a wide skill set in this e-commerce. So it's very specific, but across in industry, technical, operational, marketing, product, in e-commerce. I could advise on any angle. So if my project on tech is late, I can go for the project on operations or marketing, like try to get secondary income, like, from the two projects. I can hire people across different lines of business because I understand, what they should be presenting as a skill set. So basically, I ended up here for love, but I'm never leaving again. I think this is the best country in the world to live.
Nice. And what drove you? I mean, what's that fire burning within? What does it keep on saying to you? Because it's, I
Yeah,
mean, you
so
went through
number
some really
one
rough
is,
patches, right?
yeah, so look, it's like any entrepreneurial journey, I would say globally, whichever country you're based in, you need to be a good hustler, I would say first. Secondly, I think recruitment is a second challenge that I personally struggled to kind of, my expectations was from everyone that they would be me. And I think just that understanding in your 20s that actually for some people this is just a job, Lina, and reminding to yourself as a founder that, listen, like Ricardo maybe is not willing to give up his life for this company. It was a learning curve for sure. But coming back to your question, like what drove me even up to today, maybe I don't need to work so hard, but I still work pretty incredibly long hours because I love e-commerce. I love, when people, when they make that sale, I celebrate with them like as much as it's my own business. So for me, one thing is like, I love the variety. So I think, getting into one job and just doing that job is not for me as my personality. So doing multiple things in one day drove me as of like to keep going, because maybe one meeting is bad, but the next one is good, so it's like the balanced out the bad and a good day. Secondly, that fire in the people's eyes whenever they see e-commerce, the first sale, the growth, when they see profitability, even up to today, clients tell me like, for some reason, it feels like, Lina, you are more excited about this than we are, sometimes, because I'm genuinely like really, like I love what I do and I really, really care. So I feel like I have a number of my own businesses, because I live the challenges through those companies. So that always, even up to today, really drives me, like that kind of motivates me in terms of getting these clients successful, making them money online, proving them wrong. Let's say some of them said, I don't believe in e-commerce, and, like me proving them wrong. And then they're like, oh, sorry, Lina, I wish I started earlier. We should have started earlier. What's next? So that's second. The third thing, I would say which is maybe kind of proves that I am entrepreneur at heart. E-commerce is a very, very changing industry, right? So like what worked yesterday is not going to work today. Even if you look at meta ads, Zuckerberg will come up, say something new, and if the whole strategy falls through, finished. Like you have to be now, Trump came out with tariffs, all the clients calling in 1 second. What are we going to do on the production? If we're selling in the US. Thirdly, COVID hits, I was in labor. I'm on my watch, and the doctor looks at me, what are you doing? And I'm like, the world is stopping. E-commerce is the only thing that I could be doing it. And then the doctor looks at my husband. My husband's like, look, I'm a spectator here. I can't say anything to her. This is her babies. And all the warehouses, stores are closing. E-commerce is their only revenue source. And they are obviously not ready for this event, right? So then all the clients, they're like, Lina, we know you have a few days off for your maternity, but I was like, well, no, I'm actually in labor now, but yeah, what's the problem? So it's constantly changing it in a sense. And for my personality, it really suits this change, because I read a lot, I listen a lot, I learn from mistakes, I analyze the data of the clients, even if it would not be in my scope. Every single week, I look at my clients' dashboards. Like we all talk data, but so many of us don't even do anything with that data, right? So I am that person that would always look and be like, I think it shows this, guys. Like I would call Ricardo, did you check warehouse A? And they're like, Lina, this has nothing to do with you. I was like, yeah, but tomorrow, if we don't fix this, tomorrow it will affect e-commerce sales. You know what I mean? So I'm always trying to stick to them, trying to keep one step ahead. And e-commerce is a constantly evolving thing. And now, for example, I'm doing incredible things with AI. Like who knew, if you told me 2 years ago that I will be replacing so many things with this whole AI revolution, I would have never even dreamt it, because I can tell you 2 years ago, I wasn't even Googling it, what we can do with AI, and now, so many of my processes AI driven, and unfortunately, not every client of mine can keep up with it. So, they kind of look at me to bring that into the sort of, first of all, awareness. Secondly, maybe make it happen for them. So, and I love it, so it keeps me super busy, super active, and constantly learning, and I feel like only by learning, this is how, you asked me how many different companies, only by constantly learning, you can kind of come up with all these additional ideas, because I don't just sit and be like, okay, what's the next company I should start with? No, it's always starts quite naturally from this constant education, constant learning, constantly staying curious, I would say.
And what happened first? Was it the book or the podcast? So you're growing, you're super successful. The podcast. Okay. And how did that come about?
So the podcast, this is where I would say also when entrepreneur meets entrepreneur. So you might see I have a podcast with a guy called Alexander Graf. He is a very, very successful e-commerce entrepreneur in Europe, a German guy, and basically runs an empire. I don't know, he has 2,000, 3,000, whatever, quite a large organization. And I knew a lot of people from his team because they are all selling SaaS solution for the e-commerce brands. So if you want to enter the Middle East in e-commerce, and most of the vendors would probably invite me for the meeting first, because they know that they kind of know the influence, I would have in the region. And 3 years, I met a number of his teams, a number of sales guys, and we only talked technology. And I said, this and this, whatever. And then 1 year in one conference, he sees me running through his stand, because I was moderating a couple of sessions, and it was a shortcut through his stand, through his SaaS solution stand. I'm running. He jumps in front of me. He's like, "Are you Lina?" I was like, "Yeah, who are you?" And he's like, "Alex." I have never met the guy. He's like, "Do you have a podcast?" I was like, "No," but I said, "You will not." Imagine, this is this is our conversation. I said, "But if I would tell you now that I've been thinking about it, you will say I'm just using blah, blah in a conversation." So I said, "Let me open you my life to-do list, because I am a consultant. I have a to-do list for everything." So imagine, in front of his eyes, I open. It says, Lina's life to-do list. In life, I need to achieve this. And number one, it says podcast. I said, so see, nice. I'm not telling you this just to keep the conversation going. I said, I have been thinking for a while. And I said, I have loads of speakers that would love to come. I want to share the Middle East sort of take about e-commerce globally. I think a lot of brands would benefit globally about it. And because it's very hard to find information on Google about the Middle East. But I think on my podcast, people would open up, because I work with them. I understand X, Y, and Z. And then imagine he says to me, okay, on Monday, we have a podcast. I said, okay. I don't know anything about the guy. We exchanged LinkedIn messages. And then, I only discover, that he is quite successful founder, quite big deal in Europe and the US. And I said to him, wow. And that's what makes people entrepreneurs. I said, imagine how many times I met your team. Nobody told you about me and no one told me about you. I said, this is what you can't take from the entrepreneur. Doesn't matter how many people you have. And I said, you see, you just see opportunity. And we clicked. and we clicked so good. Like I laugh, I say like, oh, you're king of e-commerce in Europe. I'm the queen of e-commerce in the Middle East. But we don't have to do a podcast. We don't have to write a book. But, we have plenty of things to do, than writing a book together. Do you know what I mean? Or doing a podcast together. But we both believe in a bigger thing. We like, no one is sharing the knowledge. No one is talking how it is. No one is telling these founders that e-commerce is not easy, why no one is doing it, and so and both of us believe that stop whinging. Like I hate when my team comes and says problem. I'm like, what can we do? Like maybe it's not in our scope, but at least we should try to do it, because otherwise whinging is not going to change anyone, not going to change client, and not going to change us. So Alex is very similar to me, and we were like, I told him like during one of our Riyadh trips, for breakfast, we were just having in the hotel breakfast, and I said, you know what? My 2020, this was 2023, maybe 2024 actually. I said, so 2023 November, I told him, my 2024 goal is to write a book. I actually wrote half of the book. I said, you want to read it? Because I respect the person at the sort of like level, that I would show him my draft. And then he's like, wow, he's like, it's very good, Lina. And he's like, I'm writing a book similarly about Europe's, like the Western world e-commerce. And we were like, oh my God, should we just combine what happened in the West to what's happening in the Middle East? Your take the West, my take the Middle East. And I said, like, so for readers in the Middle East, they will learn from the Western world examples. And for the Western world examples that are all trying to come into Dubai and Saudi and whatever else, we can show it like how it actually works, what to be careful of. It's definitely not fiction book, it's very like business book, let's say. But we clicked like house on fire. And, I always say to him, I'm like, listen, you give me a call, like I clear my calendar, I fly anywhere in the world, we do keynotes, because I first of all love, like how we have a good dynamics on e-commerce. I find it very interesting chats. We are first of all friends. And I think in business is very important. We're first of all friends. So then every challenge that we come across, like, believe me, writing a book from 2 different countries and on something like, it's not easy, and we both have very different work styles. And, I'm very like document this, document that, like consultant. And he's been entrepreneur all his life. So, he's like, no, it's fine. We'll leave it to the end. I was like, no, I have to finalize this chapter. Like I need to rewrite. He's like, Lina, stop rewriting it. We will, come back, if you don't like it. I was like, no, I have to rewrite again. And he's like, okay, well, if we keep rewriting, maybe we'll never finish, but these challenges are never challenges, because I think, first of all, I always think I respect him. I find him like, good as a friend, so he doesn't annoy me in any shape or form. So when we come to challenges, we are focusing on this challenge, rather than, kind of like what's wrong else in the business, and it works for me quite well on a number of ventures that I've been involved in as a founder.
And do you think it's easier to open a business in the Middle East than it is in Europe, for example, from your experience?
100% yes. So to open it, this country is probably, if any of your listeners read anything about in the news about the Middle East, you can pretty much have a business in 24 hours here. It's this economy. So if you read anything, and I'm like, I am amazed, to be honest, amazed. You can do everything from your phone. Sitting, you can have trade license, submit your Emirates ID. It's so simple, okay? It's simple, so you can have it very quickly. It's when for example, Trump started with tariffs, like I told a couple of my clients in the US, I was like, in 24 hours, we can have maybe entity in Dubai, and then we think about what do we do? Maybe we do cross-border shipments into the US, like rather than B2B, we do B2C directly Dubai into the US, and they were like, Lina, we are not opening companies because that takes time, like we need solution now. I said, listen, Dubai is a solution now. We can have a company tomorrow on e-commerce. So, they're like, what? Because the circumstance, we never looked at it, like people that are trading in the West, they're like, why would I do company in Dubai? That sort of thing, but it is that simple. It's super digitized. It's super easy to open. It's very, very entrepreneurial friendly, if you like. Biggest challenges come from, so you open. The challenges comes from opening a bank account, but if your first transaction will be sort of like $10 million, then obviously you will get all the checks that is not money laundering and sorts of all the sort of things. So anything that it comes on the first transactions, banks are really, really careful. They monitor, they check, they will ask you like in any Western country, they would be like KYC, where the money came, what are you doing with that, which is normal. So you can have the entity, but you cannot start wiring in millions in seconds, without actually doing business in the Middle East. Do you see what I'm saying? So it is, and they are trying to do more and more like Western world in terms of KYC, prevention of all the money law, like all of that. They're really, really working from the top, like regulation side, and also banks and entities that open you this trade license, like they're focusing. But for like people like me or like you, Ricardo, like who are entrepreneurial, really driven, visionary, and generally just want to do business, like not some sort of shady operations, God knows what. If you are true entrepreneur, it's super easy, and then like super fast. And you might have seen in the news, they're very forward thinking. So now, like for example, we're in Europe, let's say, imagine saying to you that influencer is a business. Like we are all like, what the hell is this influencing? What is this? What is that? These guys, they say, we want every influencer. If you are above 10,000 followers, come to the Middle East, we'll give you a visa, and we will even give you a free office to do influencing from this country. Like they're really forward thinking. Like now, last week, AI is mandatory education in every single curriculum. You have 3 months to prepare as a school. There's no like, oh, should we put in a parliament to discuss who wants AI, or what is AI impact on the thing, or what is, these guys are like, it's a future. Like if we don't prepare our young, schools on it, they will be irrelevant. Do you know what I mean? So it's like so forward thinking. And the same on a business, like let's say every year you need to renew trade license. Okay. So I just went through my one of my company's renewal. And imagine, natural thing to do would be, okay, let me copy activities that I do from last year into this year. Okay, like I haven't changed what I'm doing. Mm-hmm. I try looking, because when you renew trade license, you need to very be specific. What are you doing as a business? Are you trading? Are you consulting? Are you what consultancy? So it's like thousands of like rows in Excel, but you need to select. And I'm like, okay, management consulting. Okay, management consulting is still there. Anyway, because I do a lot of AI training. I do a lot of AI, like now it's changed. And even last year, I added those activities as a new thing because I'm quite ahead of most of the businesses globally when it comes to AI adoption in retail, in e-commerce. And so I have loads of clients that are even asking me for like training sessions on AI, not just like, projects. So I was like, okay, I look for this AI in my renewal. I was like, where is this AI gone? And then I see them that they added about 100 new activities in 1 year related to AI. Are you doing AI development? Are you doing AI training? Are you working with ChatGPT? And, I was saying like, imagine back home, I was even saying to my aunt, imagine back home, the government renews, it's like, we're so used to maybe just the same of the same of the same, because people are like, no, because I would need approval and an approval on a million approval. We have one row on AI, so let's leave it this AI. Here, no way. Everything is renewed. And I was like, even saying, I was like, I was reading through all these activities and I was like, wow, I actually do this. I didn't know that it's now even an activity, like even for someone who's been doing business in a long time here, I was like, I'm amazed, like I'm genuinely amazed how fast they are reacting to the global trends, and they try to make it easier and easier and easier. They genuinely what you read around the world that they want everyone here. They genuinely they do, and look, my plan, if you ask me, what's your plan B? My plan B is always Europe. I'm European. So of course I would, God forbid something happens. I packed my bags and I go back, but being an expat here and running a business, I don't get any, like you could say, like, are you discriminated because you're foreigner? Are you are you discriminated because you're woman? Nothing. they have open arms. They are like equal rights for everyone. It's so like, at no point I even like, she's a female, she has issues. No way. I can honestly, I'm the best advocate. If I could move my parents here and they would not be in love with what they do at home, I would move them here. I would genuinely, like, if my sister's in London, parents in Lithuania, and entrepreneurs and all of them. So, it's not so easy to move like the businesses.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
But if I could, like, I tell my sister all the time, like, listen, drop whatever you're doing. She's a quite big architect in London. I was like, drop the architecture, come be an architect here. I tell my parents are in hospitality, like hotels and all this sort of thing, quite a mini empire. But so I said to my dad, I just wish, you could move these buildings into Dubai and just move here. Like, I genuinely like think it's great.
Lina, is it easy to get investment in the Middle East?
And
for a young entrepreneur, for a startup, is it easy to go to investors and say, hey, can you invest in my company? Are you interested in investing? How does that work?
No. So this is a very good question. So the answer is no, in a nutshell. Over here, it's not about that it's not easy. It's about that the market is not mature enough. So, like in Silicon Valley, you have venture capital, you have private, and it's very clear. If your revenue is X, you can go to VC. If your revenue is Y, you can go to private equity. If your revenue is below this, you go to angel investor. If your revenue is this, you can friends and family. Like, this is pre-seed, seed, like series A, B. No one, like, like if I would go to Silicon Valley, like, like London investment scene, like, if you like, I would not turn up to the VC and be like, well, I'm making $10,000 a month annual, like return, like from the subscriptions. Can you invest in me? Like, the VC would be like, Lina, I love you to bits, but have you read that we are venture capital? You know what I mean? Like, you would never even turn up to this, because people will look at me like, is she delusional? At the same time, like, if you are if you're Uber, you're not going to go to like an angel investor and be like, sorry, can you just drop like 100 million on the investment? Like, the people will look at me like, okay, like she's like, why is she not going to VCs, private equity? What is she doing? Like, it would paint me as a founder like I haven't done any research. Okay. So it's very, very mature and very structured. What the maturity also brings is that to get introductions, I wouldn't say easy, but it's easier because these VCs would have like events. They would, but it's publicly advertised. It's not like someone knows someone, called you, send a WhatsApp and turn up. Now, will we in the UAE, in Saudi, one day be there? For sure. So my kids are 5 and 7. When my kids are in their 20s, and if they want to build businesses here and raise money and whatever else, I am sure we will be, maybe it will take even faster, but we will be like Silicon Valley. Okay. Like, I have no doubt with their vision. But where are we now? Now, you need to remember that traditional money, like investment, does not exist here in a mature way. So yes, we have VCs, we have private equities, we have like angel investors, but it's more like you can count on like two, you know what I mean? It's not like volume, So you can't say like, I'm building the biotech and there is like 100 companies that I can approach for money. Do you know what I mean? Like, it will be like, I'm building biotech, so I can only go after one company, and that company invests in biotech, a fintech, AI, and what else, But what this region has, where the West doesn't have, over here, it's still very family office oriented culture. Okay. So there are a lot of wealthy families that have their family offices. Okay. That can invest, so if you read, how much they invested, family offices invested in Chat OpenAI. So pretty much no one in the US can even match it, what they invest. You can reach what they invested in, like all these like Salesforces and Microsofts and what else, So the money as of the value itself, it exists, right? But the route to that money is slightly different to what you would have in the Western world. So here is very family offices. So what does that mean? If the family office does not believe culturally or family, like we all have our own beliefs.
Yeah,
like imagine like someone, coming into your family, like you would not marry someone, that you don't like, right? Like, while VC could invest even if they don't like you because it's an opportunity in like Western world. But in here, it's like you coming into their family sort of thing. So family would judge, family would vote, family. So it could take 6 months, 12 months, 2 years till you build relationship with them before you can before they will open you a checkbook.
Mm-hmm.
So what that means is that if you are already existing business and you can show projection and there are some like big VCs behind you in the Western world, they will quite openly invite you and learn, because they love people over here, very humble in the sense that they will tell you, I have never done this biotech. Like in Europe, we're very bad at admitting. We will be like, no, I am a big, the partner in this company and this and this. Even if you haven't done it, you will not openly say in the meeting, I have no clue what you're presenting to me, right? Well, over here, everyone's very humble. They will be like, Ricardo, I absolutely have no idea what it does. However, let me read about it. I find it fascinating. It's good if these people believed in you, like maybe there is some meat behind it, so they're very like a family, like a friends, conversation, and they would open you. So the first route to market is family offices, but it's a lot harder to get to them because it's not open, right? It's not advertised. It's not like they don't organize events. Like the question is like, how do you get to them? Okay. And how do you normally get is like by being just here. Like you can't do it from anywhere else. It's very still, I would say, physical. Like you need to meet, you met someone introduced you, someone like this. Very like what, let's say, your grandparents would do business or my grandparents would do business, like traditional way, like what now, so that's one. Secondly, over here, we have in a very dense environment, we have a lot of high network individuals. So now what does that mean? These people don't want to run business on your behalf. They genuinely how you would go into like VC or like private equity, they will ask you for these like budgets, board meetings. I sit on quite a lot of like boards, like it's like non-exec directors, like a proper governance structure. Okay. Over here, like high network individuals, they would believe in you like a founder. Okay. So it's not so much about how much you're going to build the next Uber, but more about who you are as a founder. And when they meet you, like, I can't tell you how many success stories there is here where like founder was like doing they met in like angel investor, sort of like high network individual who doesn't really care what they're doing in a sense, but they see the spark in founder's eyes. And the investor would say, listen, do you not want to do B? I'm not telling you change, but I think you would. I've seen enough in my life that you might be doing B and you will scale at it. And it's a lot more mentoring relationship, if that's the right word, So these high network individuals really might give you the cash, but not in millions, you know what I mean? Like, so we're talking like million, maybe like $500,000, like just to kind of get going and test the idea. And then they will really play a mentor role. Like you can call them, you can tap into their resources, like, because most of these high network investors have like companies, like back office operations, contacts. So if you are driven as a founder, you can be like, okay, I need this introduction. I know you're doing A, I know you're doing B. Can you introduce me to A, B, and C? So imagine if Ricardo is this investor in A, B, C, D companies, and I get access when I start on A, B, C, D companies. It's a start. It's a start. So if you don't give up, you will make it. You will make it. Lina, no one will give you millions as a salary. So these high network individuals are not going to say like, okay, now Ricardo, you're on 20,000 euro salary. Like they will not. But they will, they will give you some cash plus open you a lot of doors. Mm-hmm. And I think on that, it's a lot easier to meet here because it's very dense society and people are sharing knowledge very easily. Then, let's say to meet a high network individual in London. I personally,
harder, yeah.
I don't know where would I begin in London, trying to meet high network individuals. I wouldn't even know like where to begin. Do you see what I'm saying? So,
I'm curious on one thing because I know you've been through a lot of struggles.
Yeah.
What do you say to yourself when you're struggling with something? What's the one thing? What's that one message that pops in the back of your mind saying, "I can do this"? What is it? What keeps you pushing forward?
This is definitely not the answer you would expect. But I have but this is all in my life, not just like with struggles. I always have very clear plan A, B, and C, but all my life, no matter what I do. So my plan A, take every risk possible. What does that mean? I am one of these lucky people that bought Bitcoin when no one knew the Bitcoin. But I also bought all the, like NFTs that you get what I'm saying? I made money, lost money. I am very, very big risk taker, on a plan A. So no matter what I do, because my plan B is a husband. Okay. So I know that, he has a stable job. I know that from his job, we can live in an apartment. We will have enough food on the table. The kids will not have to drop, and I think it calms me down, like knowing that, yes, maybe we cannot live the same lifestyle, holidays, flights, and I don't know, investments and whatever else, but we can survive, you know what I mean? So it really calms me down for my plan A. That's what if you ask people in like, oh my God, Lina is like next level of risk. And that's why I got into this AI before the world was even like, I was using ChatGPT in 2022 when they just released beta. Do you know what I mean? Like, so like I get myself involved in all these things but I'm very curious, like very, very curious as a personality. So that's my plan B. And my plan C is always my parents. And I'm always very open about them. Like I tell them all the time, I'm like, I would call my dad and say, listen, I have this crazy idea. I want to start something. I'm going to pour $50,000 from my pocket. If it falls and I need, I will take from my immerse business to put in something crazy. But if I have no money for the employees' salaries, because I've done some crazy thing, I said, can I borrow from you the cash? But I would call him always and very openly say, like, can I rely on you to lend me this amount of money if I need it? Fingers crossed I don't. And, so I think it's a fortunate situation to be in, but I think it calms me down on having plan A, B, C. And that's why I am, as you can see, quite chatty. I drop clients, if they don't meet my if the client is rude to my team, I would drop the client and I will call the client and say, listen, as much, maybe you are even right. Maybe my team is wrong, but I can't afford to lose the team. I can't. So if this balance is not achieved because you don't like her or him, he or she doesn't like you, maybe let's just part ways. Doesn't change anything between Lina and Ricardo, but as business, we cannot work. And I'm very open about it because I'm always thinking that it's good to be walking on eggshells. It makes you think outside the box. It makes me hustle. And I think I always laugh, some people say, oh, it's easy, when you can call dad. And I said, well, you try to be 37 and admit to your father that you need to borrow money. Like you got to such a level that you need to borrow money from your dad. I said, just think about it. How embarrassing is this? So yes, maybe it's good there, but I don't manipulate that because that's also beyond embarrassment. On one level, he reads about me in the papers, watches on TV, and second minute, I need to call him, say, sorry, I can't pay my employees' salaries. I tried not to get myself in a situation like this, Mm-hmm. But that's what calms me down. I don't overthink anything, which is maybe bad, but I don't stress. I'm very mathematical. I try to solve every problem, with a potential solution. So I'm not going to lie, in 10 years of doing business, I told the client, don't pay this invoice. It was my mess. My team forgot to turn off the ads. And I called the client and said, listen, we spent extra $10,000 more than you had it on a budget. I would tell the client, take it out of my invoice. And they're like, no, it's fine. I said, no, take it. It's my team's mess, but I don't take from their salaries. You know what I mean? But I'm very, very big believer on it's okay to make mistakes as long as we learn from them. But I try not to stress about lose sleep over it because entrepreneurship is hard, but it's super rewarding. Look at me. I'm going to go and work from Europe, all summer. So I love what I do. I generally do. And I would encourage everyone to do it. But it's definitely, I can say, you don't become Jeff Bezos overnight, for sure. It's all about hustle, curiosity, pivoting, always, and always motivating yourself, first of all, because it is hard not having a boss. Who do you complain to? Nobody.
Very true. Lina, as we're nearing the end of the podcast, if people want to reach out to you, what's the best way of doing so?
So the best is definitely LinkedIn. I am the most active on LinkedIn. You can find me in all these Instagrams and everything, but LinkedIn is, I share about e-commerce news and retail news every single day. I'm very active. I write all myself. I'm truly very passionate about it. And I really want to educate as many people as possible about the industry itself. This is, I feel like, my legacy. So LinkedIn is my go-to platform, if it's a platform. I also have a quite active WhatsApp community, if you are in e-commerce and retail. So also very quite active. But LinkedIn is, so definitely connect with me, drop me a line, let me know if you enjoy the podcast, and we take it from there.
Sounds good. Lina, thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure.
All right, Ricardo. Thanks for having me. Bye.
The podcast is also sponsored by Notion.so. Notion is offering 6 months for free for new users. Make sure you check out our website, thestartupevents.co.uk, to redeem this offer. This podcast is also sponsored by startupnetworks.co.uk. Startup Networks, it's an online forum where you can find all the resources you need to run your startup, from grants to investors to tips and tricks on how to be successful in your startup. This podcast is also sponsored by ODEV Tech. ODEV Tech is your premier software development partner. Make sure you check them out at odev.tech.